Hello, and welcome to Seeking Heaven, the near death experience and other phenomena. Thank you for being a part of today, being a part of my channel. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe and make sure you hit that little bell so you get all the episodes. Also, make comments. I do try to answer them all and share with your friends. So, and your support, whether it be a one-time donation or being a channel member, is very much so appreciated because I do have quite a bit of expenses with this channel. And I want to make sure to always continue to give you top quality because you deserve that. And speaking about top quality, I have a fabulous person here today that I'm very excited to have on and really personally interested to hear more about what's been going on in his life and his spiritual journey. Let me tell you a little bit about him and I'll bring him on. So today's guest, we're going to have Ned, and I hope I have pronounced his name correctly, Matinnia, and he'll probably correct me on that. But he was a pastor. He is a truth seeker, 100%. So all you truth seeker watching, you're going to identify with Ned. He is a past IANS, that's the International Association of Near-Death Studies, board member, and that's actually where I met him. Was at the Florida conference years ago. I was speaking out, and he was doing all sorts of stuff, but he has helped with many conferences. He now has his own project going where he is the director of the first and the largest Facebook near-death experience group, which you'll have all the links below. And that gives you another resource so you can get on there and talk to people and ask questions that are like-minded like you. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about, we're going to have Ned do some of this, but he has been a truth seeker from way back, all areas, studied different world religions, as well as the afterlife, astrology, psychics, mediums. He's very open to different things when it comes to the afterlife. And he is here to talk to us today about his spiritual journey and some of the projects he's working on and maybe what he's found to be true. So let me bring him on. Ned.
Hey, Tamara and everyone.
Yeah, it's so great to see you here. And just to let everyone know, when I first met Ned, such a sweetheart. He was. You're like, oh, but he was at the IANS in Orlando. I mean, honestly, it was 7 years ago. I think it was a long time ago. God, I got sick at the end of that. I got a horrible sinus infection. But anyway, I think it's because I was it 7 or 8 years ago? It's a while.
I think 8 years ago.
Okay, so I kind of somewhat came up publicly then and just a little bit on my NDEs, and I think it made me sick because you don't know this. I'm telling you the backstory now, but I was nervous, and I had to go through some of the yucky stuff like childhood sexual abuse. I didn't tell anyone that, but I had told them the other stuff. So I was kind of weaving through that, and I was just, I didn't know how I'd be received. Everybody was really nice though, and really supportive. And, those things are great to go to. You meet so many nice people, but I met you and you were like zooming in rooms, helping people. And you were zooming in my room with Robert Scott Belle, and because he told his NDE, and you were zooming there and you were zooming all over the place. So, I know that you've helped them a lot. And then I had a chapter 5 years with IANS, and then for my Charlotte chapter, and then, went to several conferences, I spoke to them. And that's how we met, which I met a lot of people through there. And we were talking pre-show, y'all missed it, but we were talking about how it's really important to build a spiritual community, especially when you start having these spiritual, I don't know, thoughts, awakening, and you need other people to talk to. And, maybe I want to hear your spiritual journey, but I want to start with, I'm kind of going a little backwards, but maybe not really. How did this come up with having, I mean, this is really cool that you have Facebook's largest group, which you guys can see below. It's under the Facebook group Near Death Experiences, but it is facebook.com/groups/return from death, but it's all below. But how did this idea happen, and what did you want it to accomplish, and what have you learned from that? And then I want to hear about your spiritual journey because, gosh, you had so many questions back then, and you're just so full of excitement about life. And I'm just curious to see, what you've learned since then.
Yeah. All right. That group now has over 106,000 members. I started it in September 2013, and
Wow.
at that time it was actually more of a personal project. It was like um, whenever I found articles or videos on NDEs, I posted it over there almost like as a collection. And at the time, I didn't have any idea the interest people would find in it. And so, it was kind of a personal thing. And then over the years, other people they got curious about it and joined, and it became almost like an exponential growth in terms of if someone saw it and then their friends noticed them posting in it, and then they joined, and I kept it a public and open group. And oftentimes people ask me, why not make it private? And so there are many groups out there that are private and share about NDEs. And so I definitely I honor the privacy aspect, and sometimes it's really needed because you have people who have had NDEs, and if their family or let's say a bosses, find out, it could cause issues.
Mhm.
Um, but the reason I kept it public is because I know that this information has to get out, and people are wondering, people are searching for answers beyond what our mainstream science is kind of teaching us, which is usually a form of a materialism and atheism. And then also religions tend to have a lot of beliefs that are mixed in, and it can be difficult to know what is literal and then what is more of a teaching, as a metaphor. And so as someone who is a seeker of truth, and I want to understand how things work. I'm actually a software engineer as my day job, and I love gadgets, technology, and all that because I want to understand how it all works. But and when I think about the Earth and about reality and about why we're here, that's also another area where I want to understand how it
Yeah.
all works. And a large reason for my interest in this is because when I was a teenager, I had a hard time on Earth, and which is actually fairly common in high school and whatnot. And because if you don't have a lot of friends, and your family is kind of is not a strong and loving family, and you feel on your own. And I often wondered, well, why am I even here anyway? Is there any reason? Is there any a valid reason? Because as someone who grew up a scientist, because I've had that mindset.
Mhm.
um, I fully believed in evolution, but I thought there was only evolution, and so I thought that there is no intuition or soul or anything beyond our physical forms. And so I was seeking answers because I thought, if there isn't a good uh, a reason for being here, I probably wouldn't be here anymore. And so I kept on searching, and then I came across near-death experiences. And because I'm interested in truth, I looked at cases where there was actually evidence, and I didn't want to just believe anything. I wanted something solid, and I ended up finding it in case after case. And I came across Dr. Raymond Moody's book,
Mhm.
life after life, and
Yeah, good book. Me too. Yeah, that was one of the first ones I read too. It's good.
when I learned about all those cases, my reason for a possible, you know, shortening my life was kind of over, because I was like, oh, it looks like there really is a purpose, and it looks like these are actually happening, and it looks like, even as hard as it is on Earth sometimes, um, um, and if we don't always understand while we're here, that there is a purpose. And so, and then as it happened, and the more I learned about near death experiences, the more it became my biggest passion. It's like, I have
Yeah.
an excellent day job and everything, and I love the ocean. I love biking, but I feel like the passion I have, or the reason I'm here now, is to help to spread the word and get it out that these are real. Just like with people who have had UFO encounters, and who know it's real. It's not a hoax. It isn't a Hollywood pictures on a screen. It happens. And so it's kind of like, I want to help to get the word out too, because in the scientific and medical world, especially in the past, there has been so much resistance, and people who would, laugh at it, or mock it, or say it's impossible. But over time, the number of people who have directly experienced it know that it's not just possible, but it is, and has been happening for a long time. I know that's a long answer.
No, no, no. I'm like totally tracking with you, and I agree with you, and it's a passion of mine too. Actually, it's more of an obsession about the spirit, the soul, the continuum, the consciousness continuing. What are different altered states? Besides NDEs, what are these other realms? What is the point of it all? And I love how direct you are. If you can't find a reason for being here, I'm not going to do this. If I can't find a legitimate reason, but I have to really, really honor what you said there, because I have to tell you, you had no clue about this. You just said that, and you're very candid. Do you know, I've talked to 4 people this week that said the exact same thing. And so this must be common with people thinking this, that um, you know, life, this has got to mean more. And especially now, with you really stepping out and really having a voice, which I think if we all had just a little voice, just some way, look, I can't do all this by myself. Ned, you can't do all this by yourself, but we all in our own little way, just whatever felt right to speak out, to give others a chance to speak out. There is a massive awakening and booming going on spiritually within people, and they do want to know, and they do want to know answers. Are we going to find all the answers out? I don't know. I mean, I'm saying yes, it may be no, but I'm going for it. But I think it's raising everyone's awareness and everyone's consciousness, and letting people know it's okay to talk about these things that used to be forbidden to talk about or laughed at, like you said. And it's kind of, I never thought I would see the day that NDE stories that people had. Some people have been talking about them a lot for a few years. Some people just coming out with it. Uh, that it's an everyday word now. People know what NDE is. And I think that it's kind of strange. It's like I had a reading today with a lady, and she goes, "I'm obsessed with listening to watching NDE stories." Now, I'm going to ask you. I already have my answer on that, but when someone says, I don't know why, but I'm obsessed to listen to people's stories. Why do you think that is? I think I know, but I think it's a positive thing. But what do you feel when I know you hear that?
Well, right. I've heard that, and I have been that person, and I think over time, I've kind of become, in a way, saturated. Like, I kind of, or actually satiated. I've kind of have seen and learned so much. It's kind of like, okay, I I get it. And now I want to apply it. And so, but I definitely have been there. And And I think, for many years, I also did that. And it's because I was looking for answers. And also, you learn so much about other people's lives. And because of that, it
Right.
helped to give a context for my own life, because we all have areas, our insecurities, our struggles, and we see our problems, how hard they are. And you hear about what other person, like another person, was in a car accident, or they drowned, or and then what happened, how long they were in the hospital, and you learn, you know, how they healed and persevered all through that, and you
Mhm.
learn about their NDE and their, why, um, their a guide or angel or even grandpa told them they had more work on earth, and you hear about these examples, and oh wow, I wonder what my purpose is, or my karma, or my a soul kind of situation on earth. And you hear about what people are told on the other side. Nancy Ryan's
Mhm.
used to be an atheist until her NDE, um,
Really?
and then she was riding her bicycle, and a texting driver hit her, and so she ended up with her NDE, and which completely surprised her because she wasn't expecting anything like that at all. And and she was actually met by a guide who taught her a lot. And so I know that when people are looking at these experiences, like I was, and I often still do, it's because we want to hear, and what did her guide actually tell her, and what did she learn, that I can kind of learn through hearing it. Eh,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's wisdom. What you're saying is there's wisdom in some of these indie stories. Now, I would say most of them you're going to find some nugget wisdoms. I would say very few, in my opinion, are not credible. I would say most are. And I say that. Why do I say that? Because I tell people don't use your discernment, don't believe everything. But when you start listening and you feel like, ooh, you kind of feel that, ooh, God, yeah, they went through that. I'm glad it wasn't me. And you start feeling that, you start feeling the emotion, they went through it. And usually it's something um not pleasant. I can't imagine someone texting and hitting you on a bicycle. How awful. But, it says something about the human spirit to being able to triumph over death and coming many times. Not everybody's given a choice, but some people are given a choice. And it's usually the love that pulls them back. It's usually one person, that they know that needs them, at least one. Why do I get this question a lot, and I've got to ask you, there's so many questions I have for you, but this one, we'll take it as they come up, but this is asked of me a lot, and I would love to see what you think. I'm asked, why do people with NDEs have to go through trauma? Why is there so much suffering in this world? And I'm like, that is such a loaded question. Um, and I try to be sensitive when I answer that, because I know people really do want to know, what do you feel? Most of these NDEs do have some sort of pain or trauma in it. Why do you feel like someone has to go through that?
Yeah, I think a part of it is that pain on earth is just part of having a physical body, but also in terms of like emotional suffering or emotional
Mhm.
pain, a lot of it happens during the periods of like our soul, um, growth. If you think about almost like when a caterpillar goes into a cocoon and kind of evolves and transforms, but also you think about the process of birth, and so sometimes our biggest growth spurts, um, as they're happening, are painful, but then afterwards we realize how much we kind of evolved and were changed afterwards for the better and expanded. And when I say expanded, I mean our wisdom, our character becomes more mature over time. And I think in a nutshell, so that's part of why I
Beautiful.
hear a lot of NDErs, they say we're here on Earth because we evolve like nowhere else. Because you look at a person
Mm,
who
yeah.
starts a boot camp or extremely hard class or something, and
Mm-hmm.
and immediately it can be painful, uncomfortable, but then you see them afterwards in their uniform, all matured and
Oh,
graduated,
I
and
love
you're
that
like, oh, wow.
example.
And so
I
I think that's part
Wow.
of it.
Great examples. I love your examples. I love the storytelling. People keep doing that because people need to do more storytelling. It's a lost art. And I love the visualization because that helped me. I love that. And I love the butterfly cocoon. I'm actually going to steal that. So thank you. That's wonderful. I love it. But the part with the uniform, I have known a couple, but one in particular that was very timid, blah, 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 blah. This guy friend, he went to boot camp, was very tough. And when he came out a few years later, he was an officer. He was like a grown man. Like he was like confident and he was like a different person. I was like, what happened? So you're saying through adversity that 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 what emerges is something even greater. And that's part of, I think some of that's Earth School. I think it sucks. I think it's just because it doesn't really have to do with an NDE, but sometimes pain, suffering, emotional, physical, is because that's how we learn here. And I don't believe we really die. I don't like pain, but but yeah, it's part of that learning. You evolve quicker by going through that because we have to make comparisons and differences. And so being able to taste the sweet ripe fruit and how wonderful it is, and then we eat a rotten banana, there's a comparison there that we can see. Now, another question I have for you, not that we can answer any of these, but in this a fun conversation, is why do you think people agree to have NDEs like pre-life before they get here and they get together with their guides and their angels and the elders and go, look, something's going to happen, but you'll get through it. It'll be great. I mean, how do you think people agree to that? It's part of their thing. What do you think?
You know, um, in multiple NDEs, that is what uh, was learned. Actually, in Nancy's um, case, in her NDE, even though before her NDE she was an atheist, and she was an atheist because when we're born on Earth, we often have that spiritual amnesia, and we forget everything on purpose. And then on Earth, because of how difficult it is, and how you know the human phenomenon of groupthink, where we kind of take on the beliefs of either our peers or the people we kind of look up to, um, even if they're not accurate, um, is all part of it. And so I'm trying to remember your question again, about.
Do you agree to have these
Oh,
NDEs,
oh yeah.
especially you said multiple ones that people do? How do you, I mean, how
Well,
do you feel that works?
Nancy actually in her NDE, like many people, was actually really amazed and even crying with joy about like how beautiful it was, and happy to stay there. And her guide told her, well, you're going to have to go back, and
Mhm.
she argued with her, and because and it happens a lot. It happens a lot. People often fight
To
to
stay, yeah.
stay there. Um, in her case, her guide actually, she kind of reminded her about the soul contract she had agreed to uh, before her lifetime. And in the contract was actually like a clause, if you will, if she ends up kind of off track, and
Okay.
because as an atheist, and she also mentions not being nice to religious people also, and so off track uh, of where her soul had planned, and that an incident would happen and kind of force an NDE and a reunion, and a kind of a
Mhm.
reminder of her purpose, which she was actually told was to share her story, and what happened in writing, in speaking, and to anyone who would listen. And so, and I hear that from a lot of NDErs, and even people who are shy or introverted, who are not interested in writing or speaking, and they're basically told to do it, and they're kind of
Mhm.
dragging their feet about it, because they're like, I don't want to do that, or what will people think of me? But they kind of, they realize it's a soul, kind of a mission, kind of a sacred purpose, and they say, okay, I'll do it.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's stay on that for a minute. That's really cool. That makes a lot of sense. So basically, she was an atheist. She even made fun of religious people, like, oh, these silly people. And so she was a little off track because she was actually supposed to be a spiritual speaker. So by having this NDs, it's like, oh, which I guess maybe we should clarify, a near death experience, especially ones that are the higher, where there's a light or their guides or something that's higher realm, they remember, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do this thing. Or it could be that I mean, I would say most do remember, but even more than that, I don't, I've had people ask me that, and they're kind of like nasty about it. Like, well, why'd you have so many? I was like, well, that's kind of like personal. I think for me, maybe I'm hard headed. Okay. But I feel like I needed that. I feel like there were times in life I did not want to be here. I'm gonna be honest. I did not
And
wanna
uh,
be here. I had sexual abuse and different, I didn't wanna be here. I didn't wanna be here. And I said, "No, I just can't do this." And so I really wasn't a negative person. I just kinda was more logical about it, like, "Well, this sucks. If I can't stop it, I don't wanna be here." It wasn't like I was depressed. I was a little kid, but I was more rational about it, honestly. I just said, "Well," but it became not, it was like a soul thing. So I think that what it did for me is maybe it kind of, I guess God heard that, but I guess it connected me back again. Like, remember, you're really, you're from here. It's all good. I did argue to stay, but I think I needed to check in with home base. I know that sounds, I'm not belittling an experience. So but that's what it felt like to me. Like, I need to check in with home base, wherever home base is, heaven, Somerville, Disneyland, the sky, whatever you want to call it. I just needed to check in with that because I was at a point that I was not on board.
that is actually very common. My seeking
Mhm.
during uh, uh, my teenage years was kind of part of that, because I feel like if I hadn't learned about NDEs through books or on the internet, I probably would have had one, and like in your case, or
A
in
forced
Nancy's
one.
case, and perhaps it might have been a reminder,
Yeah.
because I think that's what a lot of us are looking for, even people who are not spiritual or don't. I mean, if you think about it, if we're all spirits in bodies, then we're all spiritual, but a lot of us, we
Yeah.
just don't know it yet. And so, um,
Exactly. I say that all the time. It's like, they're like, "Well, I don't believe." I'm like, "Well, you'll find out." I mean, we still are. Everybody is, even the one that doesn't think they are.
and many of us, because of the current pop culture, or what's on a TV, or Netflix, especially in the previous decades. Many of it kind of focused on materialism, and kind of earning wealth, and kind of showing off, nice homes or cars or things. It was almost like our goal um,
Mhm.
is to earn a lot, and then, show it off. And so, but a lot of us in our souls, we felt that isn't, the whole reason we're here, and there has to be something more. And so I think, like you said, with checking in with home base, and with a lot of people, I think it's in their soul plans and contracts, when it happens. But I would say not always, because what's interesting is that I have heard about NDEs where the person like has an accident and ends up being on the other side, and their guide or a family there is a surprise, like, oh, you're early, not yet.
Yeah, I've had that happen. I've talked to people that wasn't me, but whoa, 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 this isn't time yet. You got to go back. This isn't your time. Yeah, is that? I mean, how do you think that happens? Do you think that they're just exit points and they take it and they're like, okay, we know this is exit point, but we don't want you to really, we really need you to go back. Why do you think? Is it still the same reason? I think it's still the same reason. They still need to check in.
Probably, yeah. And what's interesting is after learning about hundreds or maybe thousands of NDEs, you learn how that there is a higher plan, even when we don't get it, or it actually seems like the opposite. And so, including an NDE, which is a mistake, and like you said, at least it gives the other person a context and a direct experience of what happened, so they come back and they're like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. And now that I've had that, I can kind of live more authentically and spiritually, and not be as disconnected and asleep as most of the population anymore. So it is, in a way, an awakening, even if it's an accidental awakening, in a way.
Yeah, a lot of people, I would imagine, have an accidental way. It's not an accident. It's not accidental to the other side, and the the divine plan of it all. And I always say, Team God. I know that seems silly, but you've got God, divine, whatever God is, the creator, guides, family, whatever, it's working in our behalf. So, that's kind of profound. So, do you feel like you found your mission after hearing others' missions?
Oh yeah, and what's interesting is that around the time that I started learning about near death experiences, I started to learn about mediums and psychics and people with intuition. And I would have friends who were intuitive tell me about that I was being guided to write books and to speak on this.
Please subscribe, like, and make comments, and support this channel by becoming a member. Thank you for your continued support.